So I'm going to tell you about both our community-led conference award and our standard conference awards. And the webinar is going to cover a brief introduction of CBCRP, and then it's going to go through the conference goals and requirements. And then we're going to look at the distinction between the standard and the community-led conference awards. Finally, we'll go through the application process, both in terms of what needs to happen with how the applications are evaluated, what the timeline for the applications are, and what the letter of intent requirements are for the community-led conference award. I'll also tell you a little bit about some of the additional resources we have in putting together an award. And finally, I will ask if there are any questions. So the California Breast Cancer Research Program was founded in 1993 by a collaboration of activists, scientists, clinicians, state legislators, and UC officials who worked together to win passage from the state legislature of the California Breast Cancer Act. The CBCRP is funded by a tax on tobacco products, a 2-cent tax, part of one, along with voluntary contributions that taxpayers make through their state income tax form, and individual contributions. We devote 95% of our revenue to funding research and education efforts. And one of the integral parts of CBCRP is that we involve advocates and community in every aspect of the program. Our mission is to prevent and eliminate breast cancer by leading innovation in research, communication, and collaboration in the California scientific and lay communities. So as I mentioned, one of our main goals is to integrate advocates and community in every aspect of our program, and to share as much information with outside of the usual channels as we can about research we fund, research we found, and scientific findings in general. One of the ways that we came up with for achieving this goal was through our conference awards. So the goals of the conference award are to stimulate ideas and foster research specific to breast cancer, to build collaborations between groups that do not normally communicate, and to engage community members and investigators outside of the breast cancer research field in breast cancer research. For these awards, any individual or organization in California can submit an application and be funded, but the event must be held in California. Both of these awards, both the standard and the community-led conference awards, can ask for up to $25,000 in direct costs. We intend to fund at least one standard award and one community-led conference award, and we intend to distribute up to $50,000 in conference awards throughout the year. With these awards, we welcome investigators. Anyone who can apply, as I mentioned, anyone can apply, including community organizations, public or privately owned corporations, as well as other businesses, voluntary health organizations, health maintenance organizations, hospitals, grassroots organizations, anyone interested in teaching, learning, talking about breast cancer research. But one of the things we realized is that while we've been offering the standard conference awards for several years, over 5 up to 10, those grassroots organizations who have strong lines with the community and could support this mission of ours quite a bit also would have, many of them have more trouble applying for research funding because it's not a familiar activity. So we established the Community-Led Conference Awards to give those grassroots organizations an opportunity for more time and feedback to prepare their applications and to host an event. The difference between the Community-Led Conference Award and the Standard Conference Award is in process, not in content. So the Community-Led Conference Awards put in a letter of intent and get feedback to that letter of intent, and then put in an application process, an application. There's also access to the online materials for both types of awardees, but it is the online materials were designed for the Community-Led Conference Awards. As I mentioned, the award requirements for both types of awards are the same. In order to put on a successful event for this type of award, one of these goals must be included in the program. So highlighting resources particular to California, encouraging new collaborations, examining or creating solutions for disparities in equity and inequities, inspiring paradigm-shifting research, informing policy, promoting translation and/or outcome-driven research that will impact public health outcomes, and creating tools for educating members of the public about breast cancer. So any event that's designed must include one of these goals, must have one major objective of the conference or event must focus on breast cancer. So your event doesn't have to be entirely about breast cancer, but you must have at least one major objective that is focused on breast cancer, and at least 50% of the event must be devoted to accomplishing that goal. The preference for funding will be given to events that bring people together with different perspectives who do not usually meet or exchange views, and to events that are likely to lead to new research ideas, new collaborations, bringing in new folks to think about breast cancer research. So some example formats could be the standard symposium format with formal presentation and targeted breakouts. It could be a retreat that has less formal interaction. It could be a workshop. It could be a conference-style roundtable discussion. It could be a public forum with panelists. It really is whatever format feeds the goals and the capacity of the applicant best. One of the outcomes that we expect from any successful conference award is that it delivers a product that will further breast cancer research, education, and/or policy development. So there are some examples of products that could come out of meetings. It doesn't have to be all of them, and it can be something that is not on this list, but it could be a description of new breast cancer research ideas that are identified by the meeting attendees, or an action plan for supporting new collaborations, or the ideas for new tools for reaching out to people, new communication tools or technology. It could be a list of new investigators or advocates or community members who have been introduced to the field. It could be blogs or social media that has been generated by the event, or a curriculum of papers or an editorial pieces. So it could be a wide variety of products, but there should be something coming out of the meeting that others can learn from so that others that weren't there can learn from the event. So in evaluating the applications, all of the applications are going to be evaluated by our California Breast Cancer Research Council. And this is the body that advises on all funding decisions, does all of our programmatic review. It's composed of advocates, researchers, health care providers, for-profit and nonprofit representatives, all based in California. And they will look at these elements for any of the conference award applications that are submitted. First of all, they're going to look at the eligibility and make sure that at least 50% of the event is focused on breast cancer. Then, assuming that the event passes the eligibility, they're going to be looking at 4 criteria and scoring on them. The first is the relevance of the event topics to the CBCRP priority issues. So they're going to be looking at how CBCRP funding is going to contribute to the breast cancer portion of the event and the relevance of that event to that portion of the event to CBCRP priorities, and how integral the CBCRP funded activities are to the success of accomplishing those breast cancer objectives. They're also going to be, the second thing they're going to be looking at is outreach to breast cancer advocates and disciplines not currently integrated into breast cancer. So they really want to know who you're going to be involving in your event. Are you reaching out to new groups, and how you're going to do it? And then they also want to know how you're going to be sharing the outcomes beyond the attendees at the events. So it's the 4 criteria are what is the likelihood of the event to educate audience that wouldn't have gotten the information another way? Is the event bringing new disciplines into the field who would not normally collaborate? Have the applicants fully integrated advocates into the event? And do the applicants have adequate plans for post-event dissemination and outreach? The third component of the scientific review is looking at the approach. So what is the potential of the conference and the underlying approach to advance research by generating new ideas and facilitating collaboration? They're essentially looking at, here are your goals, how are you going to achieve them? The questions they're going to be looking at are there elements in place that will encourage attendees to ask questions? Does the event provide opportunities to generate and or strengthen collaboration? Will the event generate useful tools or products for advancing breast cancer research or education? And also, how integrated are these into the goals that you've set that you set for the event? Finally, they're going to be looking at the qualifications and background of the applicants and conference organizers, and looking at whether or not the organizers have the resources and expertise in place to manage the event. So there's going to be two timelines for applications. The standard award has a slightly different timeline than the community-led conference award. For the standard award, the applications will be due November 2nd, and they will be reviewed, and the funding decisions will be made in December 2017. The project start date for these awards is January 15th, 2018, although you should be aware that the funds may not be available until February or March, depending on what needs to happen to get the event, the pre-award cleared out and the events in place. For the Community-Led Conference Award, November 2nd is when the letter of intent is due. We'll be sending feedback on those letters of intent in December 2017, and the applications will be due February 28th, 2018. We'll announce the award, the funding decisions by April 2018, and the grant will begin June 1st, 2018. It's the earliest that it can start. So now I'm going to move into what the Community-Led Conference Award letter of intent looks like. We're asking for up to 5 pages, but I want to emphasize that you don't have to provide 5 pages. Basically, what we want to do is give you enough space to describe your event and ask the questions that you want answered in order to complete an application. The letter of intent gives you the guidelines for what you can include so that it gives the council a fuller picture of what you're planning. If you have parts that that are not fully formed yet, that's fine. Any organization or person who puts in a letter of intent for the Community-Led Conference Award will be eligible to apply for a full application. So the items that we're suggesting that you include in the letter of intent is, one, a short description of your organization. Tell us what the mission of your organization is and what populations your organization serves. Second, it is a description of the event. So what is the main theme, the topic, the learning that you want, learning objectives that you want to craft for your audience, and how do these connect to breast cancer? You can tell us about who your intended audience is and what your thoughts are about how you could reach them. You can tell us what kind of structure you envision for the event. So do you think you're going to put on a formal symposium, or have a panel discussion, or have a workshop, or how do you think you want to put this event together? Additionally, you can describe what your organizational capacity is to hold the event. So you can talk about what your previous experience in organizing events has been, what kinds of events your organization has hosted in the past, who you envision being involved with the event, and what kind of experience they've had, whether you have involved scientific partners in the event, and if so, how you will involve them, who they are. We do recommend that any conference award from a grassroots organization involve a scientific partner, because we are looking for events that will feed into research and provide information that is evidence-based and that can that will inform the audience. So if you don't have any scientific partners at the beginning of the event, we strongly recommend that you find some. And finally, you can talk about how much you think the event will cost, and if it's more than the $25,000, what you think, how you think you can find supplemental funding, and how you can track those finances. Once again, these are the kinds of things that you can include in your letter of intent. If you are confident about these areas and don't need feedback about them, you may not want to include too much. You want to focus on the areas where you want feedback. So finally, what I wanted to point out is that we have a number of resources on our website for those of you who have never applied for grants before, or put on a conference before, or even if you have and want additional information. It is on our website. The link is a long link, so I'm not going to read it out, but you can visit the site on our Community-Led Conference Award tab under the funding opportunities. And on that tab, there are the letter of intent instructions, but there are also some resources for grant writing and event planning, and some suggestions for how to find scientific partners if you don't already have one. Also, the CBCRP staff is available as a resource if you have questions. I would suggest that if you have questions and you're putting in a letter of intent, that the best answer you're going to get is by putting in the letter of intent and getting the feedback from the people who will eventually evaluate your application. But CBCRP staff is also available to give you any feedback that you might want to have. So that is the end of my formal presentation, but I was wondering if you have any questions. We also have a council member on our call, so if you have any questions for her as well.
No, not on my part.
If I left anything out or
I don't think so. This is Ernesto with the Green Foundation. It was pretty thorough, and I'm going to go over the slides, but I saw some nice points that you were making between the two distinction of the funding. So it was pretty clear for me.
Okay, great. Well, once again, if there are any questions as you go through the slides or if you come back to the site, please feel free to contact us. And we're looking forward to seeing your application.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie.
Bye.
Bye.